Hello, my name is Putkonen. Thank you for joining me. Today I'll be talking about grief is not the cost of love, but attachment. It is kind of a growing thought in the group consciousness, at least I've noticed in the US. So much so that I was watching a Christmas movie just the other day with my wife, and this line specifically came out, that grief is the price we pay for love. And that's just not true. Grief is the price we pay for attachment, not love. And so I want to go into this a little bit because after Enlightenment, awakening, the way the world is perceived and understood is different. Along with the illusion of me that shatters, it also goes other and separation, but also gain and loss. When there is only that, and there can't be more, and there can't be less, there's no gain or loss. As there is no other, there's also no me trying to grasp and possess. And so attachment falls away with the illusion of me shattering and awakening. Non-attachment. Non-attachment is the typical perspective. Attachment is the delusion that we can hold on, and awakening shatters that illusion. Not only that you can't hold on, but there's no me to hold on in the first place. And so there's no attachment. And these 2 points I think are particularly important, because what is grief other than fundamentally an egoic reaction to the idea of loss? I mean, when people are grieving, be it death or whatever, what is it that you hear? I'm sorry for your loss. It's part and parcel of what grief is fundamentally. It is a perceived loss has to occur. Something that we're attached to is taken or falls away. And in this perceived loss, we grieve for what we had. And so there's also this attachment and grasping to the past and resisting change and the ephemeral, transient nature of everything. For everything is temporary. Everything will go away at some point. And so when awakening and enlightenment happens, there's a fundamental change in the view and understanding of the world. And when there is no attachment, when there is no attachment, and when there is no loss, no idea of loss, these 2 things really eliminate grief. There really isn't anything to grieve over. There's no perceived loss. There's no me trying to hold on. There's no me resisting the natural changes that occur. Grief is really, like I said, the price of attachment. Grief is the price we pay when we're trying to hold on and things inevitably are ripped from our grasp. Because that is the nature of temporary things. Everything changes. It will go away, inevitably. And when we resist this change, when we resist this natural falling away that will occur, has to occur, when we resist this, we suffer. And the primary mode of suffering in this instance is grief. We grieve over it going away. And so some people will sometimes ask me, well, after enlightenment, don't you experience grief? And I would say, no, I have not experienced grief since awakening in 2005. I mean, there's been deaths in the family, grandparents, aunts, uncles. There has been loss of home through foreclosure. There's been loss of jobs. There's been changing and leaving family and friends behind. There's all this change going on. It's not like life for me, this life. It's not like this life is enchanted in some way, and nothing bad per se ever happens. It's not that. It's just not resisted, denied. It's not grasped. You're not trying to hold on to it. And when the forms change, it's recognized that nothing is lost. And so when things go away, there isn't grief. When grandparents or an uncle or one of my aunts, when they passed, there wasn't grief. And this has been going on for over 15 years. It's because the way things are seen is different. That is not to say you become emotionless. Because if I'm watching a tearjerker movie, I still cry. When something, due to the magic of movies, and they set the situation up where it's just heart-wrenchingly sad, still there's this reaction, this bodily reaction, and but that isn't the same as grief per se, in terms of, because grief it's personal. It's a personal loss. Again, when somebody passes, a lot of times they'll say, "I'm sorry for your loss," and what they mean is it's a personal loss. And so grief is very much a personal thing. It requires a me to have lost for grief to occur. And watching a tearjerker movie is not really a personal thing. It's not it's not quite the same as grief. And so, sorrow, sadness, grief, watching a tearjerker movie doesn't mean you can't cry. It just means that the happenings of world and life, there's no grief, sorrow, sadness for me, because there is no me. The me has shattered. The idea of me is no longer believed. There is just what is, and what is good as it is. What is fine as it is. And so it's not expected that things continue. Again, attachment is a major part of grief and sadness. And so ponder this a bit, because it's a very, different way of looking at things, because a lot of people have a hard time conceiving of not having grief. They're like, well, you got to have grief. And what it is we have, at least in the West here, in the US, we've confused to a great deal attachment and love. We've mixed them up, and we misidentify which is love and which is attachment. Because in romance, we think it's a great thing if one to the other is at this point of, I can't live without you, you must be with me. And we think that's great love. What that is great attachment and dependence, not love. It is possible to love deeply, genuinely, and not have this dependence and attachment. And so it is worth diving into, I think, in trying to see the difference between a love and attachment. And when you really see the difference between love and attachment, the possibility becomes apparent that it is possible to love and yet not grieve. Because when someone passes, it was inevitable that it was going to end at some point. And so to not resist the passing but have appreciation and gratitude for every moment you had is a different way of looking at things. And then even when there is this passing, like I said, there's no feeling of other or loss. And so, if I think on or think about, say, my grandmother, probably the grandparent I knew most, when there's a thought of grandmother, there isn't a feeling like she's gone. There isn't a feeling like she went somewhere. There's really nowhere to go. Ramana Maharshi pointed at this very specifically towards the end of his life, and the people at the ashram and the disciples per se. He really never said he had disciples, but people call themselves disciples. But towards the end of his life, people were becoming very upset, and he specifically said, they tell me that I'm dying. But where would I go? I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. Where would I go? I'm here. And that specifically is pointing to the fact that there isn't this going away. Even Ramana towards the end was trying to teach a very subtle teaching of the fact that he wasn't going anywhere. And no matter where you are is the presence. And so, and as there's no other, it applies to everybody. It's the same presence, the same consciousness. And so when you think of Ramana, Ramana's there. When I think of my grandmother, grandmother's there. It's a very different way of seeing things, of understanding things. It's there's always this constant feeling of presence. When someone passes, it's not like a presence disappears. Again, that's seeing some kind of loss. Nothing was lost. Nothing went away. There's this, for the jnani, after enlightenment, there's this firm, I think, non-experience. An experience does not arise of separation. The experience of loss does not arise. Not that there's a new experience, because I also have a lot of people going, well, what's the experience after enlightenment? As if there's some new experience. And it's really not about a new experience. It's about the lack of a incorrect experience arising. And so, for the jnani, there's no experience of separation. I look at a tree, it doesn't really feel separate. There's not this psychological mental wall or separation. There's not really a dualism there. There's not a two-ness. You look upon something and it feels not two in terms of you don't feel a duality that's other. Likewise, looking upon the world when things go away, be it possessions, people, anything at all, the natural transience of all things, when forms pass, there isn't a feeling of loss or absence, like something's missing and went away. These are all feelings that really revolve around a me. The me gains and loses. The me has things missing, absence. The me feels separation. The me feels otherness. And what I'm saying is when the illusion of me shatters, this experience of separation falls away. The experience of loss goes away. The experience of missing goes away. And in this stance, or in this viewpoint that I'm trying to point at, there's nothing lost, and there's no me trying to hold on. And so where is there grief to be? How could grief arise with this understanding? Because all action and reaction including all emotional reactions, arise based upon our understanding. And if the understanding was loss and trying to hold on, then there'll be grief. But if the understanding is nothing was lost and there's no feeling of separation, otherness, or anything going away, what is there to grieve over? It's not that far-fetched. I know some people go, oh, it just seems weird to them that grief could disappear. And I see a lot of people trying to rationalize grief and justify its existence and say, well, after enlightenment, there is still grief. When, that's just a form of suffering, and suffering falls away with enlightenment. I can't quote them, I don't remember them, but as I've read many Hindu and even some Buddhist texts, the end of sorrow, the end of grief is one of the aspects. So don't try to rationalize it and think that it will always be there, because it doesn't have to be. If the understanding changes, the reactions change. Bit more convoluted than I thought it was going to be today, but oh well. Anyways, if there's any questions, comments, please post below. And I know that in January I'll be having another kind of online satsang. I'll be posting about it shortly, or just watch the community tab. I'll post it on the community tab as well. But until next time, thank you much.